Alrighty, alrighty. Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video right here. My name is 2 Liter J, but you can just call me J. This is the Sacramento Truth Movement. Back to you from the studio with another video right here. Once again, what's cracking? So the basis behind this video, I'm gonna jump right into it. So the basis behind this video and the reason why I'm doing this is actually a part one of I guess two or three more of these a mini series, if you want to call it that. Necessarily, the reason why I'm doing this video, the topic and the title is called "Dismantling the Establishment." Basically, showing proof, if that, showing ways to dismantle the formed illusion political spectrum reality and the logistics of it, if that makes sense. Showing you how to break it down if that momentum ever went to that route. Necessarily, I alone couldn't do that, but these are key ways, that I've always wondered and looked into, and now finally voicing out, to get across. Because I've thought about the same thing too. But the reason what put me on this train of thought to do this right here is that yesterday I was actually at work talking to a coworker. Very good conversation, to be honest. One that I haven't had before with somebody of an opposing but very similar idealistic views regarding political political ideologies and sociological stuff revolving around government, if that makes sense. So it's a she. I was at work yesterday talking to my coworker, and then we started talking about politics. I think I made a comment, and then from there we started talking about different things, but more directly, very similar views but coming from different standpoints, if that makes sense. So I brought up to her, oh, so your political points are more, not less, how you would say left or right. They're somewhere in between. But as she says, no, the far right or the Republican conservative are like real off. And I would have to disagree with that. Both of these would be off. Both of these idealistics coexist. It's somewhere in between. That's like a normal human being's thought process. It's neither one or the other. You meet somewhere in between. That's kind of like how I exist. By default, I would be considered conservative. I think you've seen me mention that before in a video. But, by default, a lot of us are. But to be honest, a lot of my ideals and my political standpoints and everything else do kind of meet and coexist on a left side of a spectrum of a government type of situation. So the conversation went through that, and then she brought up that she doesn't believe in government, and then I said, "Oh yeah, I do too. It's not necessarily a freedom of choice, but more of a illusion of choice." Because how would I bring it up? Politics are already set in place. We as on this page are already explore this route, but this is for people tuning in who necessarily aren't familiar with this narrative that I go with. Um, Politicians are selected; they're not elected. Your vote doesn't matter. That would be the illusion of freedom, but not necessarily the freedom of choice. It's the illusion of choice, if that makes sense. So I brought that up, and she absolutely agreed with me. But come to find out, when we talked, she's more of a anarchist type of person. Like I brought up Antifa, so I was like, kind of like Antifa, and she goes, kind of, but not really. And then my standpoint is, I kind of get the backing between the existence of Antifa, which just stands for anti-fascist. She mentioned that, but I already know that. And with that, their ideals for certain things are on the tee, but the way that they go about it with the violent aspect and who they target and what they target and the demeanor how they go about themselves and the people that they target aren't really in good nature. So another form of that would be abbreviated LMB. How you see the riots, but necessarily they're not helping the oppressed like they claim to be. You see individuals breaking into the same race that they're supposedly defending, if that makes sense. So violence isn't always the answer. To be honest, in some standpoints, it might be in a third world government, which is kind of what the United States is going to go into eventually, but not now. I get situations like that, but a lot of these Antifa individuals are white liberals, just to throw that in there, middle class and rich. So you can't have an anti-fascist group and be pro-socialist when their values and all that and everything they own come from a capitalist society and way of living, if that makes sense. But regardless of that has nothing to do with anything. The topic went from that, and so I kind of get like the realm of the mindset that she was on, and I absolutely agree with it. I really do. But the logistics of who they deem the enemy, because we already know who the enemy is not absolutely right. Yeah, they're right about the corruption of the government and everything in between that, but they don't know about masonry. They don't know about the Yale and Harvard and all the college universities, the Jesuit alumni ties back to the Catholic Vatican and the Pope. They don't know about the youth organizations revolving around the politicians and their upbringings, such as Bill Clinton, DeMolay, and all that. They don't know about Jesuit alumni going back to the colleges. A lot of presidents are affiliated with that. They don't know about Bohemian Grove. They don't know about Yale University Skull and Bones. I actually brought that up to her yesterday. So I was like, "Do you know about the colleges and the organizations they're affiliated with?" And she goes, "I think so, but maybe not really. What are you talking about?" I'm talking about Yale University. I'm talking about Skull and Bones. I'm talking about this. I'm talking about that. Do you know about the organizations? And they said they don't really know about it. Or she don't really know about it, not they. And I was like, yeah. And I mentioned that I have a YouTube channel, but I wasn't really necessarily throwing it out there because, I want to find out what people believe in before, I show them my personal life. Because necessarily you can consider this my personal life. I don't get paid to do this. So this is more or less a hobby, if that makes sense. Um, but with that understanding, that's the basis behind this video, is identifying who the enemy is. By watching this page by now, you probably know who the enemy is. But for the newcomers who see this and are intrigued by what I have to say, welcome. So that's what this understanding will be. It will be very short, very to the point. Like what I like to say is, dumb people look for the complexity in things, while the smart people look for the simplicity in things. So that's usually what I like to do. I like to get to the core heart of it, down to the nit and gritty and everything in between. I like to get to the point. I don't like to ramble on, but you can consider this ramble on, but it's more of a explanation to what this is and an understanding to it. So yes, conservative values are great, but you can't have far right individuals alone. For example, if you just have far right, it will lead into nationalism. It will lead into a sort of fascism. But fascism can also be the same for far left. Like, the little mustache man, like we talk about. He was a socialist. And he was also a fascist. A fascist. What am I saying? A fascist. He was also a fascist and a nationalist. regarding race, not and country, but more or less both of those in a combination. Um, so yeah, you can't have one or the other without both because it will fail. So that's why our government is set up how it is. It's an illusion of freedom. They need one, they need the other to survive. So if you do have that, just one, you'll have places where, like China, that's a far left society. And look how it, it operates and conducts itself. It's like anarchy. It's like hell over there. It sucks. Trapped in your house due to, whatnot. But you'll see the up waking over there. You'll see people waking up, bringing the fight to the establishment. But do they know how to take down the establishment and who to identify as the enemy? And the people who have affiliations to what I'm about to show you are the enemy, regardless if they left it or not. Because if they have ties to that, then they can't be trusted. But they could be a good ally. They may have some valuable information, and you might want to look into that. You can't push them away, but would you put them in your league? Would you put them in your crew? Would you put them as your lieutenant? No, not at all. They'd be an associate, like how the mafia works. They have associate soldiers, you could trust them, but you really don't know if they'll squeal on you, so you don't really put them in the higher echelons of the mob, you know, because you don't want to spill the beans to the valuable information, but they could be very valuable individuals, so you keep them on the sidelines is what you do. But going back to that, you can't have one without the other to thrive, or it'll be total hell. With socialism and communism, that's all far right. So if you have far right, like the Democrats, if the Democrats didn't have the Republicans, you will have communism, you will have socialism, and they kind of have core base ideals already being implemented, regardless if people say it's not or the other. And then if you have far right, you'll have more nationalism and fascism, but you'll have fascism on both spectrums, regardless of what other people want to label it. Like Canada, Trudeau, very fascist. But then you have people over in like past European countries that are very far right. They've also been fascist. Like Putin, for an example, he's very far right in some ideals, but his government is very far left, which it's hard to explain. But his like he the way he conducts himself is very far right, and he would be considered a fascist, regardless if his government is a Marxist based nation. Leave it at that. So with that, I'm going to redirect myself to my Twitter. I'm going to do a little explanation. We'll get into what I'm talking about when we talk about who the enemy is. We done explain this pretty well for about going into 14 minutes. So we'll bring up my Twitter right here. And this is a great example of what I am referring to. Who is the enemy? How do we identify the enemy at hand? How do we dismantle that formed oppression, that formed mindset, that formed illusion of choice, that formed government association to these upper echelon societies, and how do we take them down, and how do we identify them and who they are? So we'll get into that. That's basically the logistics of what I'm saying. So we'll bring this up full screen right here. I was doing a live stream, but I had to cut it. I had somebody coming in, just being real interruptive, so I had to cut it. So I'll probably upload this pre-recorded. Well, it is pre-recorded in a little bit once I'm able to send out the 3 notifications in a 24-hour basis. But at hand, I got my Twitter right here, and this is a Twitter post I made before, back August 6th. I made it a little bit earlier, but I think this is a repost. I think I deleted the original one. Has 15 likes, 2 comments, 8 retweets. But this is a small, great example of what I said right here. Don't vote. It's meaningless to do so because it doesn't matter. Okay? So, presidents and secret societies, these would be the organizations from what they're associated to, and more or less where these secret societies, if you want to call them that, organizations more like it, operate and where they originate from. So you have Ronald Reagan. He was a Mason, believe it or not. A lot of us already know about Masonry, but if people don't know about Masonry, I'll give you a rundown on Masonry. So Masonry is a fraternal brotherhood, but in the Masonic body, there's a female organization. They also have child organizations. We'll get into the child organizations with our buddy Bill Clinton right here, the real life Glenn Quagmire. Giggity. So Ronald Reagan, Freemason, fraternal order, all males, anybody can join, all walks of life, even though they say it's a Christian, quote unquote, Christian organization when they allow different people to join. You just have to believe in a divine power or a God, as they say. It doesn't matter which one, but they swear on the Bible. But more or less, there's different forms of Masonry. You got Royal Arch, you got York Rite, you got Scottish Rite, but we'll mainly focus on Scottish Rite because that's mostly what a lot of them are affiliated to. So within Scottish Rite, you have degrees or ranks that you ascend to. The highest are 31, 32, and 33. 31, 32, no, 32 and 31 and 33 are at that point you can join a larger order called the Shriners, and then we'll get down to Trump's pasture in a minute. So Shriners are told that the light that they were seeking at the beginning of being told at their ranks is actually the light of Lucifer, the light bearer. Lucifer in Latin is Venus. Venus is the morning star, etc., etc. It all has to do with pagan origins. Many different of these societies worship pagan idols, and Mesopotamian gods like the Bohemian Grove worships the owl to be the owl of Molech, which is a representation of the god Saturn, Kronos, the Greco-Roman god. But in Middle Eastern countries, he was a owl, depicted as an owl, sometimes a bull. In Assyria, he was called a Kion or a Chion. To I think to the Chaldeans, he was Raphan or Remphan, however you say that. And it's mentioned in the Old Testament, but we'll leave the religious aspect out of it till the end. So with that, they're told that they're seeking, the light that they're looking for. And you can look into figures such as Albert Pike, which was a Southern Grand General of the Southern Army during the Civil War, and he was a 33rd degree Freemason plus Shriner. He wrote a lot of what they believe in and their teachings down in books. Look into Morals and Dogma, and he talks about how they're promoting a Luciferian doctrine. But when you talk about secret societies, people like to leave a lot of this out. This isn't conspiracy because this is what they're telling you. You can legitimately Google it, and it will bring up some stuff. But when they ascend their ranks, they keep all the low level people at the bottom, but the people, I don't necessarily know how they choose people to ascend ranks, but when they do, once you hit the 12th degree, 12 is the number astrologically and number wise to people like this in esoteric societies as the finishing number. I forgot the word that you would put it, but the finishing number. So once you reach that, the number of finishing, then you have 13, which would be the number of rebirth and regeneration. So at the third, I may be wrong. I'll leave that in there. I may be wrong, but once the Mason of the Scottish Rite hits the 13th degree, what's funny though is the York Rite only has 13 degrees, I believe. But yeah, once the Mason of the Scottish Rite Order reaches the 12th, the finishing degree, establishing the basis of masonry and the inner workings of it. So they say, I forgot the word that refers to it, but once they hit 13, now you have the number of rebirth and regeneration. Their old self has died and the 12th rank, and now they're being rebirthed in the 13th degree. If that makes sense. So from there, they're told that they're seeking a light, and that light will bring them the embodiment of their fulfillment within the order. Now, they don't know what that light is. Some say it might be the light of Christ, or they may tell you it might be God's light, the Holy Spirit. I really don't know. I'm not a Mason, so I really wouldn't know how that works. But yeah, they're told that they're seeking a light, so they ascend till they hit that 31st, 32nd, and 33rd degree. Now those 3 degrees, especially the last one, are really important because then that decides if they're material. Are they going to keep them or are they going to get rid of them? Usually they keep them because if a Mason exposes and gives away the knowledge, the hidden knowledge, occultic knowledge, occult only means hidden. If you didn't know that, the Mason takes an oath to be put to death if they reveal the secrets of the order. And you can watch videos of where they do that oath. It involves a sword. Sometimes you'll see the Masonic the Masons use the shh sound, that sign, the one finger against the mouth. You may not spill the inner hidden teachings within the order, or your life will be taken out. And it's kind of like how I mentioned earlier with the mob and shit, and like how gangs work. If you snitch, you get stitches. Snitches get stitches. You know that saying? That's how this works. And we'll get into street gangs too. I got a video on it. I'll just throw that in there. Street gangs have a lot of Masonic emblems and archetype archetypical, yeah, that's how you say it, archetypical hierarchy standpoints in the way they conduct themselves. If you didn't know that, that's why I've never been affiliated with a gang, because I'm not a Mason. So you got that well explained what a Mason is. If you look into we'll throw it out there again if you didn't know, if you didn't hear me, look into Albert Pike, Southern Grand Inspector General, and 33rd degree Freemason, very honored Mason and a slave owner, if you didn't know that. Look into his book Morals and Dogma, and look into the part where he talks about the Luciferian doctrine of the Masonic order. The Masonic god is Lucifer, the morning star, the light bearer. Regardless about how you want to interpret that, it's already there in his aspect about Pike's character himself. 33rd degree Freemason Shriner. Look into him if you don't know who he is. So you got Ronald Reagan, Mason. You have Bill Clinton, D. Malay. Now D. Malay is the boys' youth society within the Masonic body. They conduct kids and indoctrinate them. Usually the parents select them, but they indoctrinate them with the form of Masonry. So you got Bill Clinton conducted as a child as a Freemason, D. Malay, Demolay, D. Malay. Then they also have, that's Boys Youth Club, fraternal body. Then they also have some for girls. They got Job's Daughters, and they got Rainbow Girls, and those are for females. And when those females grow up, they can join the female version of Freemasonry. It's called the Order of the Eastern Star, and their logo is a satanic Baphomet pentagram. If you didn't know that, they have their own stories surrounding it. And I've asked a lot of female Order of the Eastern Star members, why is your star an inverted pentagram? And they say, oh, the star means the different colors. The different colors within the star refer to the female heroes within the Bible. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's great. I get that. I understand that. But why is it an inverted star? And I've never get an answer on that. So that's why I don't hail to any kind of satanic order, even if they claim to be atheist, because the backing, such as LaVey, is associated to people like this. And we'll explore that in another video, regardless of what religious aspect you're coming at it. You can't deny that these people are associated to these kind of groups. Now we got our buddy, we got our dynamic duo right here: Obama, aka Gilgamesh, aka Nimrod, and Biden. This guy right here, Sleepy Joe. Now they are Catholic alumni. They are Jesuit alumni. Jesuits. They're sort of like the military spy organization of militia of the Catholic Church to the Pope. You can look into them, but they have a lot of Jesuit colleges. They have one in here in Sacramento, and a lot of Freemasonry has origins back to the Jesuits. Both of them are affiliated, stemming from the Knights Templar. We'll explore the Knights Templar in another. Actually, we already have talking about the Knights Templar, the Baphomet. If you didn't know, the Baphomet are Jabulan, but the goat that the Church of Satan and the Temple of Satan uses is actually a Masonic symbol. It refers back to the magic that they were conducting within the Knights Templar, and then once they disbanded, and then later regurgitated themselves in some form, you get forms such as Freemasonry, which is a stem off from the Knights Templar, which was a Catholic order such as the Jesuits. So you have Obama and them. They both attended Jesuit schools, Catholic-based schools. So when Obama says he's a Christian, he's not a Christian to the Protestant sense. He's a Christian to the Catholic sense, more or less the Jesuit. And they attended Jesuit-based college. And now we got daddy and son right here, top and bottom, if you want to put it like that. They attended Yale University. When Bush Jr. was running against, I think it was John Kerry, is that his name? Something like that. During his election, both of them were brothers of Skull and Bones. This symbol right here, 322, that's the symbol of Skull and Bones, which is a fraternity within Yale University. So necessarily, you weren't voting for one Republican over another. You were voting for one representing the same shit, believe it or not. So once at Yale University, once they graduate and move on to their political standpoints, here in Central California, down by San Francisco, they have the Bohemian Club, attended at Bohemian Grove. You ever seen that the Alex J Wars Info documentary? I can't say it because every time I mention his name and refer to that, they remove it. But if you ever see that documentary, it's in my Molek video on BitChute. But if you ever seen it, he infiltrated it, and he showed that, and then he interviewed one of the Republicans that attended it, and he's like, he didn't respect him for looking over the fence. But they attend a mock Babylonian Mesopotamian based plays regarding human sacrifice at this place. It's called the Cremation of Care. So once the Bohemian Club, the Bohemian Grove, their symbol is an owl, and at the Bohemian Club within the Bohemian Grove area, they have a giant something foot statue of an owl, supposed to represent BC. That's their symbol right here. So once at Yale, the politician graduates comes into the political spectrum, they're no longer a student. So the adult version, if you want to put it like that, the adult club for the Skull and Bones 322 Society is the Bohemian Society. So that's when they can join. Once they graduate, they become that. I don't know if a lot of them do, but most do, such as our boy Bill Senior. I'm not Bill Senior, Bush Senior, Bush Senior, and Bush Junior. Another dynamic duo. The four amigos. These guys are all friends. What's funny is that another thing you should see is Bill Clinton, Democrat, Obama, Democrat, Biden, Democrat, Bush, Jr. Democrat, I'm not Democrat, Republican, Bush Sr. Republican, and all of these guys are good friends. So then we'll get into Trump. We mentioned earlier, we have Donald Trump, the main man lately. Now, he may not have direct Masonic affiliation, but it's damn well close to having it. So we'll get into his pastor, then we'll get into his cabinet members. Trump's pastor and mentor was named Norman Vincent Peale, the author of Positive Thinking. And Norman Vincent Peale was supposedly a Christian pastor, but believe it or not, he was a 33rd degree Freemason. Here's a quote by him down here. I can't read that, but if you zoom in, or if you go to this post, you can see it. So Norman Vincent Peale was a 33rd degree Freemason along with a Shriner, as we mentioned. So believe it or not, that's Trump's affiliation to it. Now there are instances where Trump has went. Now, if you look into police agencies and the police academy and a lot of different law enforcement agencies, they too have groups and parties that are revolved around masonry. They have one called the Fraternal Order of Police. I'll put that maybe as the thumbnail. I also have him on my Twitter, but you can look it up, Fraternal Order of Police. Trump, he did a speech regarding them, and he didn't mention anything about how he's supposed to be draining the swamp and going after Bill Clinton's wife, and he should know that Bill Clinton is a Mason, so he should be opposed to the enemy, but yet he endorses it one way or another, not directly, but indirectly, believe it or not. So Norman Vincent Peale, Shriner, Freemason, bad guy. Trump, bad guy. Republican, tries to cater to the quote on stereotypical Christian conservative, and that's what appeals to people. But they don't realize the stances. Now, if you look into a lot of interviews Trump has gave to interviewers, he's mentioned that he's studied Kabbalah. What is Kabbalah? Now we'll get into the JOOs. Kabbalah is Jewish mysticism. And there's a lot of sick shit surrounding it that we won't explore in this video. But know that if you know who Aleister Crowley is and all the sick type of magical shit that he was in, look into him. He stemmed a lot of it from Kabbalistic mysticism. So you got Trump talking about how he had his mentor who taught him, his Kabbalah mentor. You could look into where he said that. He legitimately said that. But we'll explore that in a different realm. I apologize for my background. I'm in my family's. But yeah, Trump. Then we'll go into his security border guy, his main dude to support to border security. His name is Art Del Cueto, this bald Hispanic dude, and he's a Scottish Rite Open Freemason. You can see where he's been surrounded by Trump. Him and him do the Masonic palm to palm Masonic hand shake in photos deliberately. To leave it as that. He's been in multiple times behind Trump on news. He has a Masonic pin. There's another dude that had a Masonic pin. I forgot his name though. Art Del Cueto has been interviewed regarding border security on multiple news platforms, wearing Masonic emblems. He's Scottish Rite because he's been interviewed from his home from a Zoom call, and he has the Masonic Scottish Rite dual-headed 32 eagle on a poster in his background. So, such as that. We'll get in. I won't mention none of the numerology because this is already a lot to take in. But to understand who the enemy is on the spectrum of left and right, when indirectly they're both the same shit, believe it or not. That's just how it works. If you catch my drift, there's no good, there's no bad. I mean, there's no good, it's all bad. It's an illusion of choice. These people here go through these universities and stuff like this and are selected here. I would mention Ted Gunderson, But I think that necessarily would be a different topic regarding, the religious aspect of it. We'll explore that maybe in a part two, because I do plan on doing a dismantling the establishment part two. So we'll talk about Ted Gunderson and what he found at the preschools revolving this, and how the agencies, the government, and the court system covered it up regarding the trafficking that there was going on with the preschools, and all the satanic emblems that they found when they dug it up. But it was a cover up. But we'll explore that in part two. That'd be a good way to go into it. We'll recover the religious aspect of it so far in the next one, but in this one, we're mainly focusing on the political spectrum. But ironically, both of those do go hand in hand. They say religion and politics don't go hand in hand, but in reality, they do, believe it or not. So this is presidents and secret societies, aka organizations and universities. So in order to understand who the enemy is, you have to realize what the enemy is associated to and what institution and groups are the enemy, and their puppet spawns that pop out of the woodworks from them, such as Ronald Reagan, Trump, and Obama and Biden, and all of them else. America has had many, 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 many Jesuit and Freemason presidents. George Washington, for example, was a Freemason president, and that's well established. You could look that up. Well open about it too. He was very well open about it. But yeah, as I said, once you know who the enemy is, once you come to the realization that politics are an illusion, now you need to identify who the enemy is. And by doing that, you look into the individuals and what organizations they stem from, what groups they are tied to, what schools they attended, and then from there you can identify the families that they're a part of, their friends, and who they're associated to. Now, this is mostly focused on American politics. Different other European societies have noble families, so we'll cover that in part three, because they do have ties to how this works. But necessarily, this is more how to identify who's at play in this political spectrum illusion, the illusion of choice, the illusion of freedom, and the illusion of politics. None of this is real. None of this takes place. Yeah, there's form governments on a localized basis. You can vote on a localized basis. You know about who you maybe want as mayor in a small town. But I damn well agree that Gavin Newsom and all these other mayors and shit are affiliated to this. If you didn't know, Nancy Pelosi was the aunt of Gavin Newsom, and a lot of them have ties back to the mob, if you didn't know that. And a lot of ties have back to Masonry, if you didn't know that. So I necessarily don't know where else to go with this. I just wanted to drop this little piece right here regarding this. So yeah, that's basically the front face gist and ways to identify who the enemy is. As I said, once you come to the realization that your vote doesn't matter, you come through the mindset. It's a thought process, and it's damn well hard to believe in. But once you get past that, your vote doesn't matter, that you are in a spectrum played by actors. So you no longer believe in this. You realize that there's no freedom of choice. It's all illusion, the illusion of freedom, the illusion of choice, and the illusion of voting, and the illusion of politics within this kind of form, federal, if you want to label it like that. So once you realize that, look into the puppeteers, look into the puppets, but mostly look into the puppets. Look where they went to school at, who they're associated with, what their family does, who their family is, what their family owns, where their families went to school, where the kids went to school, what groups they're associated to with. You probably label those as secret societies. What they do, who they may be associated with, such as Trump right here, what they practice, what their religious views are. And if all of them go back to one way or another, back to, this type of shit, then they're no good. No good whatsoever. And that, folks, is your enemy. And from there, for the Antifa people, you don't really know who your enemy is. You're fighting conservatives when your left wing idols, such as the dynamic duo down here, have parts in the problem. So there you go. There you go. Just wanted to break that down. So yeah, I was originally live streaming this, but I thought, had an issue. Start over. Why not? But I don't know if my background's been loud the whole time, but I think I've voiced this pretty well, knit and gritty. So with that being said, I'll post this in a few hours. My name I go by is Jay, but you can call me 2 Liter J. That's my code name. It's my alias. Um, Make sure you follow me on all pages. I'm on Twitter at Christian EXODU1. There's a link. All my links are in my about section, and all my channels are listed on every home page that I have. Subscribe to Sacramento Truth 1, 2, 3. Subscribe to all the pages that you see on the homepage. Follow me on BitChute. Follow me on Twitter. And follow me on Twitch as STM Fatarally. And I'll see you later. Peace.